Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. So what we've been hearing from a classicist talking about history in a previous podcast with Danny Jones, with Armin Hillman, another classicist, what we've been hearing is...
We don't even know. Let's back up and talk about methodology again. What we're dealing with usually is probabilities. Anything we do is guessing. For the 1,000th time, we're guessing about everything. Everything is speculation. We don't know anything for sure.
So why is there so much speculation going into all this history, especially biblical history? Well, I brought up the Rylands Papyrus here because this is supposedly one of the earliest fragments of the Book of John. Now, what does it say? It's a fragment from a papyrus codex measuring only 3.5 by 2.5 inches, or 8.9 by 6.4 centimeters at its widest, so about the size of a credit card, and conserved with the Rylands Papyrus at the university. How it's been dated is by the writing itself, not by carbon-14 analysis, because as we'll see, this piece is too small to be carbon-14 dated. That's what they're saying. But let's take a look at what it says originally. So, the original editor proposed the date range of 100 to 150 CE, while a recent revised exercise, aiming to generate consistent revised data, estimates for all the New Testament papyri written before the mid-4th century, has proposed a date of 125 to 175 CE, or AD. A few scholars say that considering the difficulty of fixing the date of a fragment based solely on paleographic, which is the writing, evidence allows the possibility of dates outside these range estimates, such that any serious consideration of the window of possible dates for this papyrus here must include dates in the later 2nd and early 3rd centuries. And how was this acquired? The fragment of papyrus was among a group acquired on the Egyptian market in 1920 by Bernard Grenfell, so he took them for the Rylands Library. Now, the claim I want to look at is that it says it's too small to be carbon dated. So right here it says the date comes from paleography, so the handwriting analysis, with some arguments having wider ranges, as we said. While carbon dating has been done on other ancient papyri, it's not typically used for P52, which is the one we're talking about, which is dated by comparing its script. Why? Carbon-14 dating measures the decay of carbon in organic material, but gives a wider date range and requires a larger sample than P52 provides. So it says the sample that this papyrus is too small for it to be able to be carbon dated. Well, let's take a look at that. What were the sizes on that again? 8.9 by 6 centimeters, which is 3.5 inches by about 2.5 inches. And the text is on both sides. And look at the top right here. You have all of this. Top to bottom is 8.9, nearly 9 centimeters, and across is about 6 centimeters. You have all of this here, which you could use for carbon-14 dating, which, okay, we can get into, is it going to be accurate? Well, it's just going to be another piece of evidence for us to have a look. And then if the dating comes back wildly inaccurate, then we can rule it out. But we can't rule it out unless we've done the test. And look at all this here, this huge section up the top. There is absolutely nothing on this. No writing, no nothing. You're not going to damage anything. Well, you're going to damage it, but you're not going to damage any writing that is on the papyrus. So let's take a look at how much of a sample size you need for carbon-14 dating. Now it says here the minimum size and weight. While older methods required large samples, modern AMS requires only about 3 milligrams to 10 milligrams of organic material for a reliable date. So the physical dimension. This usually equates to a tiny fragment, sometimes as small as a few square millimeters, depending on the thickness of the papyrus. And this is nearly 9 centimeters top to bottom. So you could easily take a few square millimeters of the piece we just saw to use in a carbon date. Now, what is the smallest feasible sample that we can use? Some specialized labs have tested and reported using even smaller samples, such as 0.5 milligrams to 1 milligram of dry material, depending on the weight of the text. You're telling me that it's too small to be carbon dated, when right here it says a specialized lab has tested using 0.5 to 1 milligram. You could easily cut out more than a few square millimeters of this top section. So to say that this isn't big enough to be carbon dated, based on the evidence and what we've read here, you could easily use it. You're telling me the Vatican doesn't have enough money to have a specialized lab to test all of these papyri? And even if the dating comes back incorrect or wildly inaccurate, then we can rule it out. But we can't rule it out until that has been done. And Right here, they're saying it can't be done because it's too small. But we're looking at the size and the ability that we have in modern times to be able to date these things with carbon-14 dating methods. And that's just not accurate. They're saying it's too small, but it's definitely not. There's enough papyrus here that we could get enough of a sample to carbon date it. Whether it's accurate or not, the fact is they're saying it's too small when it's actually not. We have the ability to do it. So do it. And then we won't have to keep sitting in, we don't know, everything's speculation, blah, blah, blah. Just like this guy said.
We don't know. We don't even know. Let's back up and talk about methodology again. What we're dealing with usually is probabilities. Anything we do is guessing. For the 1,000th time, we're guessing about everything. Everything's speculation. We don't know anything for sure.